What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today I am very excited to tell you that there is a new Star Wars deck building game, and it looks awesome. Now, this was actually kind of, I suppose, announced at Gen Con, I believe, but we were told like nothing about it. Certainly not enough information to make a video or really kind of try and make any kind of judgment about the game, so I didn't tell you about it. I let it hang. However, we do now have a bunch of information, and I am very excited. It is launching in March 2023, that is next year. It's currently being listed on the official store for $37.99, and we know it's being designed by Caleb Grace. Now, this is a name that hopefully will be familiar to some of you. Obviously a chap working at Fantasy Flight Games, because this is a Fantasy Flight Games game. But Caleb is one of the main creative forces behind Marvel Champions, and if you've been following this channel for any length of time, you have probably realised I am a huge champion, pun intended, of Marvel Champions. I adore that game. So seeing the designer of that, or one of the main designers I should say, not the only designer, coming in what seems to be a solo design here on a Star Wars game just fills me with absolute joy. And of course, really should point out, we are talking about a Star Wars game here. This is very much a Star Wars game, and that makes me very happy. I am a huge fan of Star Wars. Now, this game, it's a two-player deck building game where you've got the Rebel Alliance against the Galactic Empire. So the decks are kind of built around Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, and we'll get more into the gameplay and all in a minute. One of the things to point out at the beginning here, we've gone for low-hanging fruit in terms of how the decks are being made here, and the main characters. You've got Luke against Vader. As it stands at the moment, we're not told about any expansions coming in or any future plans or any of that. So essentially, this is going on its own for the minute. But if you've been following Fantasy Flight Games for any period of time, you will know that they love making expansions to their games. Take something like Journeys in Middle-earth. Great game, incidentally, one that I would recommend very highly indeed. And sure, that worked perfectly as a standalone game initially, but we've since had two big expansions, Spreading War and Shadowed Paths, as well as some smaller expansions as well, so that could easily have been a standalone game. I feel pretty gosh darn confident that if this game sells well, and I certainly intend doing my part and picking up a copy, I feel pretty confident that we will get some expansions to this. So sure, it starts off with Luke against Vader, but come on, we know that they can get a lot weirder as time goes by. And to be fair, you know, we can see on this little collage here that we do have Boba Fett coming in. We've seen that Director Krennic is one of the characters. So sure, it starts with Luke against Vader. It kind of had to. But there are plenty, it seems to be at least, we've not seen all the cards, but it seems like there is plenty of Star Wars nerdery to go around. I mean, the fact that one of the bases, more on them in a minute, is Mon Cala, yeah. I think, like I say, we've got Luke and Vader as the main characters in the decks, but let's not pretend that there's no Star Wars nerdery here. It seems like as we get into the decks as a whole, there is plenty of nerdery to be had. And like I say, I am fully expecting expansions to come in the future, and I think the kind of core of those decks is going to get a little bit weirder. I hope so, at least. So how does the game actually work? Basically, one of the things that makes me really happy about this game, we basically got 10-card starter decks. Either Empire or Rebels, and the first 10 cards are deliberately underpowered, and apparently 7 of the 10 just generate resources. And you win the game by destroying 3 of your opponent's bases. But the kind of main conceit of the game is you've got your Galaxy deck, you've got your Galaxy Row, and the Outer Rim Pilot deck. Now, we're not told very much about the Pilot deck in this reveal, so I can't give you very much information about that. But the Galaxy deck is kind of awesome. Now, you'll notice there, as you look, there are 6 cards laid out. Some are sideways, some are facing one player, some are facing the other. And essentially, what we've got is a Galaxy deck made up of Empire cards, Rebel cards, and neutral cards. And there's always 6 of them out there. with the Rebel cards facing the Rebel player and the Empire cards facing the Empire player and the neutral cards sideways so either player can read them. And during your turn, you use whatever resources you've got to purchase those cards, but you're only allowed to purchase cards belonging to your faction or neutral cards. Which, I love the idea of this, because what it means is your opponent always has access to the information of which cards are available. They're not always going to know what's in your hand or any of that, but they are going to be able to see which cards are available. They are going to know which cards you buy when you buy them, and that is going to make things very, very interesting as the game goes along, because your opponent has always got access to extra information that they wouldn't necessarily have in every deck building game. In a lot of deck building games, it's kind of take a card, add it to your hand, your opponent doesn't exactly know what's going on, but both players can see the galaxy row, which means that both players are going to have knowledge of what's in there, and both players are going to know what their opponent is potentially going after. I love this. One important point to note, when you purchase a card, it goes into your discard pile, so you need to actually wait until you reshuffle your discard into your deck to actually have access to that card. Which I like that, it makes it on a bit of a delay. Now, in terms of what you're trying to do to win the game, you are trying to take out 3 of your opponent's bases. When you take out 3 of your opponent's bases, you win the game. Here's what's really cool though. Rather than attacking the bases, you can attack your opponent's cards in the galaxy row. Because there are 6 cards laid out there and you can buy some of them, but you can't buy all of them. And you might look there and see that there is a particularly good card that your opponent can buy, and you might not want them to buy that card. So what you can do is use your cards, and instead of attacking your opponent's base, you can attack the card in Galaxy Row that you don't want your opponent to have access to. So as we look at Director Krennic here, as an example, it's got a target value of 5, and it's got a reward, and you'll notice they're upside down. But of course, as I'm looking at Galaxy Row as the Rebel player, they're going to be the right way round, which is why they look upside down. And essentially, if I attack that with a power of 5, I can take out Director Krennic, and I will gain the reward, but then my opponent won't be able to buy Director Krennic, and I absolutely love this. Now, as well as having units, we've also got ships, like Rebel Transport and Imperial Carrier. And basically, these are cool little cards because they give you static abilities. Units go away at the end of the round, but capital ships stay around and have to actually be destroyed. And when I say have to be destroyed, I mean have to be destroyed. Your opponent has to take out all of your ships before they can actually attack your base. They work as blockers, basically, which is kind of cool. But we can see that Rebel Transport lets you repair 2 damage from your base or generate 1 resource, which sounds pretty gosh darned awesome. And then we've got Imperial Carrier, which, while it's in play, each of your fighter units gains 1, I'm assuming that's attack power. So you can see there that they're very, very useful, and they work as blockers, and then you can put them out so your opponent can't go after your base. I'm liking the level of strategy that seems to be coming in here. These mechanics seem sound. We'll have to sit and play the game before we can say for certain, obviously. But certainly at a first glance, this is making me pretty gosh darn happy. Now, in terms of the bases, Rebels always start with Dantooine and Empire always start with Lothal. And they're boring, they're rubbish. They've got 8, I don't know, health, life, whatever it is, and they don't do anything. They're kind of boring. However, we've seen some others like Mon Cala and Coruscant. Mon Cala's got 10, and when you reveal it, you can purchase a Rebel or neutral card from the Galaxy Row for free. Whereas Coruscant's got 16, way more difficult to take out. And when your turn begins, you look at the top 2 cards of the Galaxy deck. One of them goes on top of the deck, and the other one gets discarded. Remember, the Galaxy deck is a shared deck between you and your opponent, so you could be grinching cards that they would want, or you could be making sure that cards that you want still stay in there. Maybe both, if you're very lucky. And one of the things that's really, really cool here, when your base is destroyed, you choose a replacement from your base deck. So, depending on how your opponent is playing and what their strategy seems to be, you can fix which base you're using to try and thwart them or to help yourself. It's little things like that and like Galaxy Row that make me excited for this game. Now, the last thing I need to tell you about is using the Force. There's always a Force scale, and it starts all the way towards the light side, but it can be moved towards the dark side. Some cards have abilities that say if the Force is with you, and they can only be used if the Force is on your side of the track. However, when you gain Force, it moves towards you, obviously, and if you get it all the way to your side, you do actually get an extra resource to use for the turn. So, building up the Force and keeping it on your side can be something which is very, very interesting. I love that Caleb Grace is designing this game, especially after their work on Marvel Champions. I love that we got another Star Wars game, and there are things here like the Galaxy Row being visible to both players, like the fact that you can choose your bases, like what we got going on with the ships. A lot of this just sounds like a really interesting back and forth two-player game. Basically, I can't wait till March comes out so I can actually play this. And also, they've got to be thinking about expansions. Because I'm sorry, I'm already excited enough about this game that I'm thinking we want some expansions. But that's what I think about all of this, ladies and gentlemen. I want to know what you think. I want to know if you think this game looks good. I want to know how excited you are. I want to know, basically, anything you want to tell me. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about a whole bunch of card games, including now this one. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts for answering all of your questions, join a Discord and chat with friendly people, and yeah, just generally have an awful lot of fun. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.